stuff intertwined with a lot of other stories and a lot of people intertwined in multiple stories. The reason for this is because it's a small world. I went to some of the same people repeatedly. Why did I continue to go to Megan Missigatis, despite the fact that she told me it's not her job? Because the police told me that's who I needed to go to. They told me it's her job. As long as they continued to tell me it was their job and as long as they continued to tell me that it was her job and act as if it was her job and tell me that that's where I needed to go to turn this in, then god damn it, that's where I went. So, since I am 100% certain that Scott DeCosta and his goons did not find that piece of information because it didn't have to do with the crimes that they committed, they didn't bother to look. Well, it actually did, and we'll get to that in a bit. But first, I want to tell you about Jolly. That's right, that is his first name. You cannot make this shit up. Well, I suppose you could, but you can also take the time to look it up. Jolly Snell is Clint Snell's son. Clint Snell, it'll be difficult to unbury the video. It's in my YouTube somewhere. But Clint Snell is Leslie Snell's husband. You didn't get to hear him in the court thing, but he wasn't close enough to the microphone. They wanted to tell me about all the special privileges that they were doing for me to make sure that they went through the ceremony of violating my rights. It was gracious and beautiful, wasn't it? I do. All right, so when that jackass was trying to blackmail me and making his dream rifle, you know, one of the things that really sucked is that Cabelas, the fucking prices there, they're fucking hell. Now, I did buy quite a few magazines there, and of course, they're extended mags. They have plenty of capacity for ammunition. Let's see, two of them are well, they're all painted, of course. This thing is cherry. It looks beautiful. If somebody was to be a connoisseur, they would love it. The thing is that it's only looks. This thing is not going to be accurate. This thing is not... Well, it's got a bunch of illegal modifications on it. It's got a long barrel. It's got a folding stock. It's got... Well, pretty much everything on that thing makes it even more illegal, compounded with more illegal. That's part of the reason why this guy wanted to have the gun in a place where he had access to it, but at the same time, he wanted me to have access to it. He wanted to handle it with gloves. That really did set things off. But of course, by the time he ever actually handled it, I'd already turned it into Megan Missigatis. Now, Jolly, this is the part that the Snells are going to love. Jolly can verify that he walked up to me while I was in Cabelas in the gun section looking at gun parts. Matter of fact, I can even tell you what we were speaking about. See, he wanted a Valkyrie. It's basically a 223. I mean, it kind of is, sort of. But, you know, 223 Valkyrie, it's not a 223, it's a 224. So slightly larger bore. And he was complaining to me that he had a 22 and he had a 223, a few of them, but he didn't have the gun that he wanted. He didn't have the Valkyrie. And yeah, I don't know. 223 is easier to come by. What you really want, though, is a 5.56. If you got a 5.56, you can fire 223 and 5.56 out of it, because 223 is Winchester and 5.56 is NATO standard. They're just a little bit different. One of the major differences is the powder charge. There's a lot more powder behind a 5.56 than a 223. So if you put a 5.56 round into a 223, you could potentially end up with a rupture and, well, the thing blowing up in your fucking face. So this guy wanted to be able to fire 223 and 5.56 and have a, when you put 223 into a 5.56, because of the head casing and the spacing, it's, you want to go for a wild, W-I-L-D-E. The wild barrels are specifically designed to have a little bit of variance, just enough that the tiny bit of loss that you're going to get out of one round is not significant, and the other round is therefore able to benefit by that spacing. And I don't know how to explain it to you with all the technical terms, but I understand the concept of it. I just don't remember the exact words. I do apologize. So while I was in the store, and here I am, I'm in Cabelas, and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to buy gun parts. Fucking, I sure as shit didn't fucking work on these guns to end up spending my money. I mean, all right, with Wendell McPhee's firearms, absolutely I would have. They are beautiful. They're antique. They're guns that I know how to work on. It's not a 223. It's not a complicated fucking piece of shit that requires. I literally had to buy special tools. I had to spend over $120 just on tools to make this guy happy. Now, I also knew from experience from breaking his gun that those tools were necessary. Now, the part that he claimed broke when firing, and the part that I can verify 100% that I broke, they're not the same parts. The one that he claimed broke while firing was on the lower receiver. The part that I absolutely broke is the connection between the lower receiver and the upper receiver. So I mean, it's not the same part. The part that I broke, I ordered a new part and I gave it to him. He said, "No, I need you to fix it." Fuck. Like, no, dude, I can't. I told you that I didn't want to fuck with your gun. I told you to begin with that I'm not familiar with it. I told you to begin with that I'm not a fucking space cadet. Now, the thing is that Jolly can at least verify that he saw me in the section of Cabelas that is specifically for the parts of firearms. And if he can verify that, he might remember about the time or day that that happened. If he can remember that, because I have a lot I got to remember. If he can remember that, then that would actually help me to go through and find the conversation with Megan Messigatis. Because like I said, I didn't make that one public. There's a lot of stuff with Meg that I didn't make public. Safety issues for her. Why is she now trying to pretend that that conversation didn't happen? Because she's dumb. Like I said, she's a moron. When you've got somebody who has a history of not only telling the truth, but then showing the truth when people claim that it didn't happen, in those people's own words. Now, in the morning, I'm going to download the conversation with the cops here. And one thing that tips me off the most to whether or not people are being honest is their body language. Next to body language, it's the tone of their voice. The least important part of what people say is actually their words. Their words are the least important part. Now, a lot of people get angry at me because I do take things literally, even things that they don't actually mean it. I had one guy, he told me to get out of his house. I thought he was kidding with me until he was fucking pounding on my face. So after that, people are saying, all right, when people tell me to leave, I literally do leave. I get up and I leave. Even if I think you're joking, I'm going to get up and leave. But then because I get up and I leave because, well, it's not always fucking fun and games, then they want to make fun of me because I didn't realize they were joking. Well, excuse me, says I, but that's not something to joke about. If you want me to leave, and I leave, and you tell me not to, and then the next time you want to tell me to leave, and I don't because I think you're joking, well, then you're an asshole because you wanted me to leave, and, well, I didn't because I thought you were joking because, well, the first time you were fucking joking. Dynamics. Was Jolly involved in the manufacture of an illegal firearm? Absolutely not. I'm not going to blame Jolly for the crimes of Leslie Snell. I'm not going to blame Leslie Snell's children for the crimes of Leslie Snell. However, the shit that Leslie Snell pulled does put those children at risk. Those children are going to get made fun of because their mother did break the law. Their mother did do those things. Their mother is recorded on my YouTube. Number one, listening to me explain about the situation. Well, all right, she wasn't listening to me explain. You guys can listen to the conversations with her. Their arguments. Their arguments over the situation where I have to, well, I've got nut jobs calling me from restricted numbers, and then I'm supposed to be awaiting telephone calls from Nebraska State Patrol. All right, during this point in time when these calls were being made, I didn't know that Investigator Woods existed. Never heard his name before in my life. Same thing with Amanda Jonas. I'd been trying to turn into Costa and his deputy since 2018. Holy shit. This did not need to happen the way that it did. By denying me the rights of someone who is developmentally disabled, yet taking away the rights of someone who's not, or taking away the rights of somebody who's not developmentally disabled. They went back and forth. When my rights as a human being should have applied, they weren't, because they wanted to use my disabilities as an excuse. When my rights as a disabled person should have been observed, they weren't, because magically then I wasn't disabled. It don't make no sense. Those of you in Chapel, Nebraska, you can ask Jolly. Ask Jolly if he saw me in Cabelas, in the gun section, and if he came and spoke to me about his Valkyrie. Well, he didn't have a Valkyrie. Hold on a second. He might have been looking for a 308 Lapua. That might have been it. I'm pretty sure it was a Valkyrie, though. He could probably tell you. But he also might have changed his mind about what kind of a gun he wants now. A lot of people are into there's a new round it's the dark round. It's basically a 223, just like a Valkyrie, and the 308's a little bit tougher though. It's a lot bigger round. Jolly's got, well, he probably has more of an interest in guns than I do, because I do love how they work. I mean, when I was despite the fact I didn't want to do it, I really did enjoy the hell out of working on an AR-15. I did enjoy it. As far as whether or not it's safe to shoot, I would say decidedly not. Whether or not it's legal, for certainly not. It has over a 20-inch barrel, and it has a folding stock. There's also, in some of the boxes that are there, there is a two-stage trigger. What this allows you to do is for every pull of the trigger, it fires around, and then when you release the trigger, it fires around. It's called an echo. It's actually the Echo 2, and these things are expensive. See, this is the thing about when you think that you're going to do somebody a favor, and then they want to blackmail you because they want something better. The gun that he had to begin with was a piece of shit. I mean, really, it was a piece of shit. It's not like it's a collector's piece from one of the wars. It's not like it's some super high dollar brand. It's just a fucking knockoff piece of shit. Now, the part that I broke is not important. What is important is the lower receiver. He still had the lower receiver intact. This lower receiver had all the serial numbers on it. But then all of a sudden he wants me basically to build him a ghost gun in the way that he was handling it, and the way that he was treating it, and the way that he was talking to me. Set off a whole bunch of red flags. But those red flags had already gone off because I'd already called Megan Missigatis to tell her what was going on. There are multiple crimes. These things continued to happen. People continued to take advantage of me. When Megan Missigatis was made aware of that, and she did absolutely nothing, well, what am I supposed to do at that point? I mean, here I am. I needed her to help me to get this stuff to the police, and of course, it's stacking up. A crime is committed. Cops tell me to go to Meg. Meg says she can't do anything about it. It's not her job. I go back to the cops. It's not their job. It's Meg's job. Next time a crime is committed, I go to the cops. Cops tell me I need to go to Meg. I go to Meg. She tells me it's not her job. I go back to the cops. They tell me it is her job. Y'all are seeing how this is going, right? I mean, you're starting to understand this, right? So these crimes continue to keep happening, and I'm supposed to go to Megan Missigatis, and it's not her job. And while she's telling me it's not her job, as a mandated reporter, it is. Also, as mandated reporters, it is those officers' duty as well. However, those officers had committed many crimes prior, and they knew that it needed to be recorded, and somebody needed to be there and present. They were well aware that I was telling the truth about that portion of the law. They knew that they had to play on Meg Missigatis' title. They knew that they had to play on that because especially the grand fucking package. I mean, this is like handing them a gift on a golden fucking platter. Here's a woman who's not willing to do the job of an advocate, but she's got advocate as part of her official sounding title. And you know, that was one of the things that I was trying to impress upon her about why she needs to speak up. She does have an impressive sounding title. And she also admitted in one of the recordings that's on YouTube about how important that impressive sounding title is. I mean, that words are not important. They absolutely are. The tone is important. The body language is important. In court, you lose, well, when you have to do it across the internet, you lose body language. You don't lose the tone of voice, though. In text messaging, you lose the tone of voice, and you lose, of course, the body language. When you have a transcript instead of the actual evidence, that transcript is not actual evidence. The actual evidence itself shows that the transcripts that were written were incorrect, outright lies, and literally were not transcripts. It was, what do you call that? A generalization, sort of what I kind of sort of said in their interpretation emotionally. Well, hold on a second. You mean that you were having paranoid delusions because I tried to turn you in? That sounds about right. Now, Dr. Sears, this is an important feller in all of this. I was speaking to Dr. Sears, and I was like, dude, here's the thing. They're trying to claim that the cops are trying to claim that I'm fucking schizophrenic and that I'm delusional to get away with their crimes. And he said, you don't have to worry about that. You can't be here if you're schizophrenic or delusional. If you were schizophrenic or delusional, you'd still be in C2. The reason that you're here is because Dr. Ted Hill decided that you didn't belong in C2 because you're neither schizophrenic nor delusional. Now, since my story didn't change in between when I was being treated like I was schizophrenic and I was delusional, and when they decided that they were wrong, well, they actually weren't wrong. That's the thing, is that none of these doctors were actually wrong. They were misled and lied to, which is a big fucking difference. That's the thing that Ted Hill was pissed off about. He was pissed off because they were fucking lied to. He also said something I already knew. I'd already said on multiple occasions. A police officer cannot diagnose you as schizophrenic. You get to hear Marcia Estrada saying that too. A police officer cannot diagnose you as schizophrenic. I'm well aware. Those hospital staff, I am certain, were well aware that Amanda Jonas cannot diagnose me as schizophrenic. I am absolutely certain that the hospital in Scotts Bluff was well aware of the fact that Cody Selhorst and Jared Hahn cannot diagnose me as bipolar. You're not seeing where this is going? You're not seeing the pattern? You know, when I had first gone to Meg Misigatis about that illegal firearm, you know, I was already about $2,000 in the hole from trying to appease this guy. And I had to order two more 80% kits to get all the crap that he wanted. Because, I mean, at this point, this $4,000 for one fucking rifle, you could get one off the black market for less than that. When you get one off the black market, well, yeah, they're actually more expensive than the ones at the store. You can get a 22 Plinker at Cabelas for like $120. You can get an AR-15 version for around about $250. You can get a high dollar, top of the line AR-15 for $2,000. And here I spent over $4,000 in fucking gun parts. Now, don't get me wrong, not all of that was for Bob. There was other people, other customers, and I ordered the parts, and I fixed their guns, and I still had spare parts. One of them, he wanted his gun fixed, and I ordered a surplus kit, so I got a whole bunch of extra parts. The surplus kit that I got was in far worse condition than I thought it was, and he wasn't interested in it. I tried to give it to him after fixing his gun. It's a, hold on a second. M1 carbine. So, of course, there's M1 carbine parts. There's not enough for you to make a functional rifle. There's no receiver, but most of the parts are there other than the receiver. Of course, if I was going to go being an assassin, that's not the rifle that I would pick. I wouldn't pick a rifle at all. They got 80% kits for handguns as well. That's what I would have chosen if I was going to be a horrible monster. These idiots that are going in with a fucking AR-15 and fucking shooting a bunch of people, well, that's stupid. I guess they want to get caught. Now, you can manufacture your own well rod pretty fucking easy. If you don't know what a well rod is, look it up. Or a well rod Mark II, well rod MK2. Now, Jolly, it's a good name for him. He's a jolly feller. Even after Natalie was killed, just like his dad, he continued to treat me like a person. He continued to talk to me like I was a person. Just like Cody Kurth. Cody Kurth still treated me like a person and talked to me like I was a person. Leslie Snell, I'd never had an issue with her except in high school. I called her Lynn one time. I was pissed off because Lynn was not so nice in high school. And Lynn talks to me like I'm a person. I'm afraid to go talk to Lynn because Lynn and Leslie are twins and it's difficult to tell them apart from a distance. But Lynn has been, well, we haven't talked a lot. I've only seen her a few times since high school, but she's always pleasant. But in high school, when I was mean to Leslie, she had her hair cut short and she grabbed her hair and she said, "I'm not Lynn. Leslie has less hair." And I always remember that. And I felt so terrible because I do have a conscience. Lil Perk 30 type, Leslie voted for Biden. I wouldn't trust her. I wouldn't trust anybody who thinks that the vote matters in America. Did you notice that, well, every election since Clinton has been extremely close? Super close. The reason for that is because after that election there was a whole bunch of people arguing because the next election after him was who? Well, that's right, Al Gore ran for president. And it was so close that, they tied it up in courts, and the American people didn't give a shit about anything else in the country. They cared about, my president, he actually won. No, my president actually won. Well, mine has already been sworn into office. And now we get that election, every election is that close. Every election comes down to the state that they pre-predict that they're going to pay attention to, and they tell you ahead of time. This state is going to be our pivotal state. We already know that this is going to be the average in all of these other states, and this is going to be the state where they're not going to be right on our averages. Where it's going to be close. It's going to be within 2,000 votes in Florida. Some people said it was within 200 votes in Florida. Made the difference. And what happened? 6 months. You got 3 to 6 months of the government doing whatever the fuck they want. Going on vacation to visit Epstein and fuck little kids. Who knows? Anyway, I went down and I charged up my phone. There's a gas station and they gave me permission tonight. So I did charge it up to about 40% and it'll probably die soon. I did try plugging it into my computer. My computer didn't even completely turn on before it died. So it has to be turned on in order in order to work. Tomorrow, while that is downloading, I've decided that I'm going to record live on my telephone. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to scroll through the messages starting at the very beginning with Natalie Bollinger and read every single message until the day she died. I'm going to show you the evidence by holding my phone up to my computer at Starbucks while it's plugged in. I'm going to hold my phone up like I was doing before, and it's a giant pain in the ass, and it is tough to keep it in focus, but it's got to be done. I gotta show you guys all the truth here on YouTube as well. And when I post up my screenshots on Facebook, that is so user friendly. Being able to do that on YouTube, I don't know how to do that. Nobody taught me. I know how to do what Miss Jerry taught me how to do, sort of. And I know how to do a few little tips and tricks that I've learned along the way by trial and error, mostly error. I do want to say that those officers today, they were nice about blowing me off and nice about not smiling and laughing until they were walking away. Mostly smiling. You don't want to laugh out loud, that'll get caught on the audio. But the gentleman that I was speaking with, and the gentleman that didn't have his card on him, well, that guy who didn't have his card on him and that guy that I was talking to, as they were leaving, they smiled, but, well, their body cameras, there's a possibility, because they were still facing each other when they smiled. They smiled right at each other. You know the smile. And, well, it might be on the body camera. It depends on if he turned it off before he started walking away. I don't know. I'm not sure when he turned on or off his body camera. He did claim that it was on. So we're going to download that tomorrow. And while that's going on, I'm going to try to live feed the conversation. Well, I should start with Tim Beeson because, well, even though the thing with Natalie Bollinger shows that obviously I wasn't stalking her in Virginia, obviously we were friends, obviously the situation was not at all like she had pretended. With Dan Favorite being too much of a coward to talk to the police, and with Megan Missigatis fucking twiddling her goddamn thumbs until it's too late, and then making an effort and saying, I told you it wouldn't work. Well, when did you try it? Did you try it when I first come to you? Megan Missigatis says she's 100% honest. Well, we're going to see. She said a lot of things didn't happen, and a lot of things actually did. And she pulled one of the stupids that everybody wants to pull. Yes, I recorded it all. No, I'm not interested in having to post it on the internet. I do want to have hope that you are going to do the honorable thing and tell the truth. But if you're going to lie, oh, it's on and all bets are off. If you're going to accuse me of slandering you about something that's in one of those videos, yeah, I told you that I wouldn't post you up on the internet. And I didn't. I told the story. In most cases, I did try to keep people's names secret. But you know what? When it comes to the safety of others, all bets are off. If you're going to lie to me, I am no longer under any obligation whatsoever to maintain my end of a verbal agreement. If we have a verbal agreement and you do not fulfill your end of the bargain, I am under no obligations to fulfill mine. If you break the deal, it's off. I don't have to follow a deal you've already broken, stupid. Little perk 30 type, this is true. But no way that many people voted for Biden. The fix is in. And then he typed, I like to bet. Ah, I don't. I like to be right. I like to be right. If you prove me wrong, that's a good thing. You proving me wrong is a good thing. If I've got some ignorance in my head that I'm spouting, as if it is the truth, and you show me otherwise, you've done the right thing. Fuck, where's my lighter? Now, as far as turning in that firearm, as far as getting an investigation going so that they can pretend like they had to catch me in the act, that they were able to take down the horrible, evil, wicked monster Sean Schwartz. You know, if they had looked under the bed in the hotel when they arrested me, because like I said, I was trying to turn everything in at once. I had a week to do as much as I possibly could and get as much turned in as possible. And Megan Missigatis finally was going to help play catch up. So hell yes, I was going to get to turn in Leslie Snell. I was going to get to turn in Scott DaCosta. I was going to get to turn in Robert Warnick. I actually had assistance in doing it instead of having to talk to Tara Smith alone. I was going to get to call Tara Smith with Megan Missigatis. And Megan Missigatis, she had a time crunch. And always, I got to tell you, you don't get to blame me for that like it's my fault or my choice. Or like I didn't work around it the best that I could. In that particular case, in that situation, even though that stuff did need to go to Amanda Jonas, because Amanda Jonas had been sticky about her instructions and said that her boss was going to call me, and he didn't. We were supposed to have it set up for Thursday, but they were supposed to call and, well, her boss was supposed to call and verify and didn't. And then there's the safety issue that was created afterwards. And although I did call the Nebraska State Patrol, I called who I was supposed to. I called Nebraska State Patrol about Leslie Snell. On my YouTube channel is Leslie Snell and several 911 calls where she did hear me explaining to her, and multiple calls to the Dual County Sheriff's number where I did explain to her about the restricted calls. There's also the fact that I spoke with Scott DaCosta about those restricted calls. That is also recorded, and she was there and present for that in person. Little Perk 30 type, they didn't do anything about Leslie Snell because Biden is in her pocket. It's got nothing to do with Biden. This shit with Natalie Bollinger was going on while Trump was president. You want to blame this on Trump? No, you don't. I don't like either one. Did you know I threatened to kill President Trump? I did. I did it publicly on my Facebook to try to force the cops to do their jobs. I was desperate. My supposed friends, well, if they were friends, they would have spoken up. If they were friends, they wouldn't have made empty promises. Now, because Detective, hold on a second, not Hyatt. Like I said, there's a lot of cops that I had to a shit ton of fucking cops I had to deal with. Detective Peterson. The things that he said in the interview that he had and you can get a hold of that on YouTube, of course, the things that he said in that interview are extremely important. The things that he said in that interview, half of the things that he said are things that I was called schizophrenic for saying, and these things that he said, when I said them, I was treated as if they were untrue, as if I was lying, as if I had hallucinated them or made them up. And of course, with Detective Peterson verifying those things, well, that's perfect. That's grounds for a mistrial. That's a good start. It's grounds for a mistrial. Now, one of the reasons that they're really heavily invested in covering it up right now is because, all right, if those murder investigators are put in prison for the crimes they did commit, then they have to go back and they have to review every single case that those officers have been a part of and see how many people might also potentially be in prison. How many homeless people have those officers put in prison? Because every one of those is suspect. The reason is because homeless people are the most victimized people in the country per capita. As a homeless person, you are far more likely to be killed by police than a black person. As a homeless person, you are far more likely to be killed by police than a disabled person. As a homeless person, you are far more likely to be raped by police than an elderly person. And police officers have been busted. That's the thing about the elder laws. It's not just nurses who have gotten busted having sex with old people. It's not just people at mental institutions who take advantage of and rape disabled people and get away with it by calling them mentally ill. That officer who raped a woman on the hood of his vehicle in Adams County, this is the county that Natalie was killed in, a 27-year veteran officer who is supposed to be giving a disabled woman, a woman, a ride home from the hospital. This is what he was supposed to be doing. And he raped her on the hood of his vehicle, and it was caught on his body, or on his dash cam. Now, it's pretty obvious because she was called mentally ill. He thought he was going to get away with it and that nobody would listen. Well, somebody did listen. And when the cops blew them off, that person didn't just allow it and say, oh, okay, well, they said no. No, that person pushed it until they looked at the body cameras and saw that woman being raped. But you guys didn't push that for me. What you pushed was lies. You told me you were going to help me, and you didn't. See, it's not that I wasn't trying to turn it into the police. It's that none of these other people were. Megan Misgatis wants to throw it in my face that she finally did things in January of last year that she should have done all the way back in 2020. People say, oh, well, you can't just get angry every time they don't do what you want. I can get angry that they're not doing their jobs. All right? I can be angry that they are not doing their jobs. I put in years of hard physical labor and paid my fucking taxes. Just because I am disabled now does not mean that I didn't bust my ass. And it doesn't mean that I want to see American taxpayer dollars going to that. Let's take a look at the amount of money that Wayland Lolatai costs Boulder County. We're looking at about $3 million. All said and done. That's an awful lot of money. You want to know why there's no more battered women's shelters? There are, but not very many. Well, it's because they were all turned over in the 1980s, the late 80s and the early 90s. They were all turned over to local sheriff's departments, which promptly closed them down. Sidney, Nebraska alone, they have had 7 houses donated specifically so that there would finally be a battered women's shelter again in Sidney. Finally. One woman decided that she wanted to give up her house for that purpose. So they accepted the gift of the house, but did not utilize it for its intended purpose. So they had a house that could be used as a battered women's shelter. However, or as they called them in the 80s, a safe house. In the 80s, it was a safe house. So then another woman, she went, you know what? I got beaten up a lot, and there was no safe place for me because they took them all away. So I'm going to give my house up so that, not knowing, of course, that they already had a house designated for that, this woman gave another house. This happened 7 times. 7 times people gave up their houses in Sidney, Nebraska. These houses are now property of Sidney Sheriff's Department. They could sell one of these houses and run a program for an entire year. Now, why is it that all of these places with battered women's shelters, that they're closed down? Well, this could happen to have a lot to do with the fact that, well, although cops know that they can get away with these things when they do it to homeless people, they're not always right about who's homeless. Sometimes it's an upper middle class white kid who's just trying to slum around the block. He's got a girlfriend who's poor, or maybe he's got a crush on a homeless girl or a homeless woman, but he's slumming it. And when the cops decide to do to him what they do to all the homeless people, well, his mommy and daddy give a shit. His mommy and daddy got the money for an attorney. His mommy and daddy have at least enough money, although not enough money to buy the rights of Bill Gates, not enough money to buy the rights that Donald Trump has, but they got enough money to buy some fucking rights. They got a house and they look nice enough. They fit the bill of what an American family is supposed to be. But yeah, that upper middle class white family is going to get $3 million in payments. While, what did Sammy Leon Lawrence IV get? Well, let's take a look at this. Sammy Leon Lawrence IV was assaulted and falsely arrested. Same as me. However, he was dark-skinned. He got $95,000 for his false arrest and assault combined by Waylon Lolatai. But Miles wasn't assaulted, he was just falsely arrested. And his family was awarded over $3 million. What's the difference between the two? Miles was white. So Zade Atkinson gets $130,000 almost as his settlement out of the situation with Waylon Lolatai. That's right, Waylon Lolatai was the one with the shotgun. Now, one of the ways that they were able to prevent me from turning in Waylon Lolatai was because they wouldn't give me his name. This is against the law. Now, because I didn't have the ability to record it, where is it? They didn't give up their body cameras. That's that sleight of hand thing. That's what I keep telling you about. The police can do whatever the fuck they want. That cop today was a fucking lying piece of shit. claiming that that body camera that's there for his safety and mine. No, it's not. You guys have already broken the law here in Hood River repeatedly, but you did it with a smile on your face. And then you protect each other's asses, and it's a lot easier to do in a small department. I mean, in a big city, you can get lost in the paperwork real easy. A lot easier than in a small town. But in a small town, well, they're going to help each other get away with it. Police officers, however, that's a brotherhood of their own. So police officers across the country do and continue to, well, protect each other's asses. They've got access to lawyers. Just because they're cops, they automatically have that access. You don't have that. Let's see. Little Perk 30 typed, "We can't win either way. I've been watching you for over a year. The cops never help you." You're right. You typed, "Do you just love the small towns?" Well, it's not just the small towns. That's the whole thing about them being a brotherhood. How they get away with it in a small town is different from the way they get away with it in a big city. In a big city, well, they can get it lost in the paperwork because there's really so much going on there. In a small town, however, you're able to prove a lot more. Because if something gets lost in the paperwork, they don't have the excuse of having thousands. My public pretender in Arapahoe County told me that she has to process 1,800, that's 1,800 cases a month. She told me that that's why she can't defend me, even though she's supposed to do so. Was that my fault? That she had 1,800? No. Now then, let's look at the situation in Rawlins, Wyoming. My public pretender there wasn't willing to do his job because he had an overwhelming caseload of over 200. Big difference there. Way bigger difference. I mean, we're talking about my public pretender in Arapahoe County having, what is that, roughly 8 times the number of cases? That's a lot. That's a whole lot. If he's overwhelmed with 200 cases, and well, over 200, but if he's overwhelmed by that many and she's got 1,800 of them, now is that my fault? See, that's what people keep trying to insist. All of this shit is my fault. It's my fault that they have overwhelming caseloads. It's my fault. It's my fault. It's my fault. Guess what? It's cops' fault. Cops like Waylon Lowattai are why we don't have battered women's shelters. Cops like Waylon Lowattai, Boulder police, continually having to pay out the ass. We're funding the police to abuse the homeless. Sometimes they fuck up. And then we pay out the ass because they fucked up. And they settle it out of court. No officer should be allowed to settle it out of court. There should never be a settlement out of court for someone who holds such a position of power. If they are settling out of court, they are admitting to wrongdoing. That is literally a legal bribe at that point. And according to the mandated reporter laws, they still have to report it. So whether you settled out of court or not, if you were called mentally ill, or if you were homeless, and that is the situation that happened to you, you do get another chance. They fucked up. It's not that we don't have legal recourse, it's that it's not observed. Yes, my legal recourse is to go to Adult Protective Services, who blew me off not once, not twice, but on multiple occasions. They repeatedly went out of their way not to collect evidence, even when it was there in person for them to see, and specifically for them to see, and I specifically told them that. A lot of people are mad at me because I told the truth about them when they took advantage of me. That's the thing, is that I am an at-risk adult for a reason. I am at a lot of disadvantages, financially, physically, and of course, well, with all the beatings in the head and all of the severe trauma, yeah, I am not mentally capable of taking care of myself. Now, of course, Megan might get lucky. I might get arrested before I'm able to dig that out and put it on the internet, but I'm going to race for time to make that happen. I did go to mandated reporters, including about an illegal firearm that I was being blackmailed into making, and before I even made the goddamn thing. The reason that I continued is because Megan Misgatus was unwilling to help me turn it in. The thing about that is, this is not a little thing. This is not a little joke. This is a federal offense. I mean, taking advantage of me in such a way is a felony, but that's a state felony. The manufacture of the firearm itself is a federal offense. When I told her this guy was trying to make me make his dream gun, she did not do the right thing. Now, today, I made sure that because it was in a message with multiple people, obviously, she's not going to be nearly as honest because she doesn't want any of those people, especially since she knows that Marcia Estrada is a professional in her field. And, well, she's got letters behind her name. And guess who doesn't have any letters behind her name? Yeah, that's right. Marcia Estrada is a lot more important as far as turning things in like that, because she, in every state in the union, would be a mandated reporter. Whereas Megan Misgatis, the only reason she's a mandated reporter is because, well, it's Nebraska. Everyone is. But also as a result of that, the things that Dallas Richmond admitted to but did not come forward with, Dallas Richmond is subject to up to a $500 fine and 6 months in jail. That's just on the misdemeanor, and just one. Now then there's the fact that there are multiple counts. So let's compound that. For every charge that he's convicted of, every time that there was a crime, and I can prove that the crime happened, and I have the evidence of it, and he did not help me to turn it in, well, that's an additional charge. Wendell McPhee, same thing. He was aware that my life was being threatened by Sandy Fromm. He's the one that let me know about it. But he did not come forward about it. He did not make a police report, and he didn't try. The fact that it is also recorded, well, that only works in my favor. But I don't want any of these people put in jail. I want them to tell the truth. If those things were the truth that you told me, those things that are recorded, many of them on YouTube, the ones that, out of respect, were not posted up, I get to post them up now. I busted Megan Missigatis repeatedly lying today because in a string with 5 other people, she's a lot more liberal with denying shit. And that makes it so that I no longer have any faith that she is going to have a change of heart and actually come forward with the truth. So, thank goodness I have the recordings. They won't be difficult to access. Those were not destroyed by the sheriff that I needed her help turning in. He didn't help her out that way. He helped himself and his deputies out that way. I'm betting she's real fucking glad now because she is legally liable in this. So is Marcia Estrada. So is Penny Cooper. So is Jen Beebe. Isn't that nice? Isn't it nice that I recorded those things? Now, of course, Zach Richmond, he might have thought, oh, well, it's taken Sean a while. He's probably lying. Nope. It did take a while. I ran into a bunch of fucking problems, but did I get it posted up? Yeah, goddamn right I did. There's a few pieces of evidence that, like I said, I gotta listen to thousands of videos, folks. Sometimes there's a video that I know it's around the same time. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same video, because while me and Wendell McPhee are talking to each other, sometimes he gets on repeat too. Now, that's a good thing and a bad thing, but mostly a good thing. The reason for that is because when he talks about a certain subject, he'll usually talk about it for a few days in a row. So if I don't find the exact video that I'm looking for, because I remember specifically a specific part of the conversation where he said that, or one of the specific days that he had said that, but since he said it like 6 days in a row, I listened to them, and maybe I might not hear the one that I'm looking for, and I move on to the next. Sometimes I have to listen to them to the whole thing. Sometimes I can remember what cowboy movie we were talking about at the time, so that helps to find a reference, because then, like, if I hear that movie in the background, or him talking about that part, then I know within just a few minutes that we'll be to the part that that the actual evidence is in. The part where, yes, he absolutely did tell me. Like, for example, the part where he told me that Sandy Fromm had threatened to kill me. That could be anywhere in a 2-week period. I think it'd probably be close to a week. But, I did speak up pretty swiftly and pretty soon. But first, I wanted to see about having Wendell go in with me. Well, he wasn't willing to. I said, well, what would you do if people were threatening to kill you and your family? He said, oh, I take threats very seriously. Well, so do I, but nobody else did. Wendell McPhee, he's already involved, obviously. She's literally telling him that she's trying to hire someone to kill me, and he has made himself even more involved. He has created for himself a path from which he cannot turn around, because instead of pretending it didn't happen, he told me about it. But he did not tell the police. And it's recorded. So Wendell McPhee, well, could get into a lot of fucking trouble. Now, of course, even though in his conversations I tell him about hundreds of crimes, the individual crimes themselves, If you listen to them, some of them are the same situation and the same crimes. It's just I'm talking about other individuals who were involved or other individuals who were there at the time and the things that they did. He also speaks about other predators in town, and if that information is correct, then, well, he should have turned in John Apolius 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. And there is no statute of limitations on child molestation. There is no statute of limitations on murder. There is no statute of limitations on rape. There used to be. Now, here's the tough part about that, is that John Apolius didn't say that he molested Doug Cowden's daughter. He just said that he saw it. Well, why the hell would you admit to that? You're a mandated reporter. You're a Nebraskan, John Apolius. You're required to turn that in. You saw Doug Cowden molesting somebody and you didn't turn it in. Well, you know what? Rand Ingersoll got molested too. A lot. Why didn't you speak up, John fucking Apolius? Well, why didn't Wendell McPhee speak up? Small town politics and public opinion. None of those people in town would go in with me because they didn't want to get involved. Well, it's too bad because as mandated reporters, because they are Nebraskans, the moment I went to them and told them about it, they became mandated reporters. Molly Smith did not make a police report either, but she said she's willing. I believe that she is still willing. The problem is that, well, she was going to do so after her surgery. After her surgery, it turned out that, well, the replacement knee that she had, the cement that they put in, she's allergic to. So she was supposed to be back after a few months. Well, she's been out of work for over a year. So since she's been out of work for over a year and it's been difficult to contact her, well, statute of limitations on much of that is over now. It's not my fault that Molly Smith had medical issues. It's not my fault that we were not able to coordinate. A lot of that had to do with the safety issues in Chapel, Nebraska. Now, Molly Smith knew that I was trying to turn in Jared Hahn, but she insisted that that's the officer we went to and talked to, because if she was there, that he would listen. Oh, he did. He even looked at the evidence, and I got that recorded too, but the files are corrupted. Now, this is files that are corrupted of things that were, well, they were sent to me by my public pretenders, but because of the situation with Brian Valenzuela stealing that evidence from Longmont and entering it in only as property, refusing to enter it in as evidence, made it so that I couldn't gain access to that or get it shown in court. They can show little bits and pieces. And then there's also the ones who want to argue and say, oh, well, YouTube isn't really that credible of, or Facebook isn't really that credible of, well, you're right. But the evidence itself is credible. The evidence itself is sound. The evidence itself says what I say it says. The evidence is during the time frame that I said that it happened. The problem is not a lack of evidence. If you're not supporting me by looking at the evidence and sharing the evidence and speaking out, you're not supportive at all. You're a time waster. You're a brown noser. You're a bootlicker. I don't need my boots cleaned. My feet stink, and that is a mean thing to do to somebody when your feet stink as bad as mine do. Now, there's another video I was going to make after this, and I might still, but I'm fucking tired and exhausted as shit. But I'll give you the gist, the video that I wanted to make that I'm certain I won't be able to. When I post up the conversation with those officers in the morning, and I'll go through the Tim Beeson texts so that you can see the texting part of it. I'll also go into my email and I'll show you the threat thing from Riley Johnson and from that lady, and I'll show you that I did, in fact, well, I won't be able to show you that I did show it to Jai Rogers. The reason I won't be able to show you that is because that's on their cameras. However, after showing it to you guys on the internet and explaining to you that that will be in the video with Jai Rogers, since that was in a murder investigation, they can't destroy it. Since the abuse has been ongoing, and since those officers have continued to slander my name and to go out of their way to omit the truth, to omit evidence, well, they're still committing crimes. And that makes it habitual, and that allows me to show everything going all the way back to the beginning. Well, the parts that haven't been stolen in the meantime. When I said I needed a safe place for me and my evidence, I needed a safe place to process it, I wasn't kidding. In here, I can't process it. Am I going to be able to plug in my fucking laptop into the outlet? Oh yeah, I don't have one. I got an electrical generator, but it's at Dallas's house. I let his brother know he could have it. I was going to have him bring it up here with my tools. He said if I paid for it, he'd bring my stuff up here. But of course, the money that I was going to spend to have that done, well, it didn't work out too good, did it? No, it all went to my vehicle and to the fact that it's fucking expensive to live out on the streets. It's also expensive to own a vehicle. Thank goodness I have the vehicle. There's no way in hell that I could carry all of that evidence in a backpack. Now, if you listen to the conversation tomorrow with those officers, I want you to imagine that one of your loved ones is missing, and the officers treat you like that. I want you to imagine that there's a situation of potential human trafficking of an underage girl by no less than Ted Bollinger himself. Well, imagine that. So tomorrow, when they're likely to be open, and I'm not going to have to talk to dispatch just to make sure that it's recorded on their end, tomorrow I can actually call the sheriff's department in San Antonio and make sure that they get an investigation started. Knowing that Ted Bollinger is not in prison even after having an illegal firearm, that he was allowed to move to somewhere else, that is quite disturbing. But I do have to make the call. And I have to do it while it is recorded. When they ask for my phone number, I will probably step away for just a minute. That way I'm not giving out my phone number to my predators and end up with hundreds of restricted calls in just a single day. That's right. One of those videos that I posted up, it's during the video I get literally over 200 restricted messages. There's also when I tried to call my Aunt Mary while I was at Ventus's, and it was non-stop, over and over, restricted messages. Now, Sheriff Scott DaCosta told me, and with Leslie Snell in the room, by the way, and not just Scott DaCosta, there was also one other situation with a deputy where Leslie Snell was also in the room, where they had told me that I need to change my phone number. I just need to get a new phone. When they told me that I just needed to get a new phone number, I said, well, I can't, because if I get a new phone number, it'll erase the evidence on here, and I can't have that. Also, there's professionals like the Nebraska State Patrol who are supposed to call me so I can turn you in. So I have to keep this phone number. Now, when I got the new phone, because that was their suggestion, well, then you need to get a new phone. I did. I did as I was instructed by law enforcement. I did as I was instructed by Scott DaCosta by buying a new phone, hoping that that would end the issue. And the first thing that happens when I get the new fucking phone hooked up is Leslie goddamn Snell tries to make sure that the whole world has my number to retaliate against me for trying to turn her into Nebraska State fucking Patrol. Sorry, is that a true statement? No, it's not. That's absolutely not why she chose to retaliate against me. Do you know why? Because it doesn't fit the fucking timeline. Obviously, she could not have been retaliating against me when she tried to give out my number because I tried to call the Nebraska State Patrol. Why is that? Because I tried to call the Nebraska State Patrol about her trying to give out my number. So it doesn't make sense the other way around. And a lot of people, because the same situation happened with Natalie, they wanted to change the order of events in order to justify it. Now, if I was to do that, if I was to say that, or if she was to say that, she retaliated against me because I called Nebraska State Patrol, she'd be lying. If I were to say that she retaliated against me by trying to give out my number because I called Nebraska State Patrol, I would be lying. The reason for that is because the events did not happen in that order. And it's a good thing I don't pretend that they happen in that order. With Natalie Bollinger, there were things that did happen, but not in the order that she said they did. She had to say that those things happened in the order that she said that they did, because otherwise it don't make no sense. It shows her to be a fucking liar. Now, as far as the hundreds of calls and texts, you know what? On that broken phone, everything that happened with that happened because of the fucking phone. Alicia Bollinger can verify that the phone is broke as fuck. She can verify that she changed it over into her name. So I actually ended up losing my phone number. She can verify that she quit within 10 minutes of changing my phone over because she worked at the Cricket store. She can verify that before that phone, well, there were no arguments and no issues. There was no accusations of stalking. There was no, Sean, you're a horrible person. There was none of that. It was them telling me that they loved me, Alicia inviting me over when she had lunch, inviting me over when she had her cigarette breaks, telling me she's going to come over and see me or to come over and see her after her meeting with her bosses, things like that. Are these things that you do to somebody who's stalking you? Do you ask somebody who is stalking you what they want for their birthday? Do you tell somebody who is stalking you that you love them? Y'all got some creepy ideas about what a stalker is. With a lot of this stuff, like one of the criteria of a stalker is that they're asking where you are. I didn't ask Natalie Bollinger where the fuck she was. I did ask for Tim Beeson's address so that I could get a protection order against him. Why would I want a protection order against Tim Beeson? Because he was fucking threatening to kill my family, you stupid son of a bitches. It wasn't just me. By that point, there had been enough actual assaults against me that yes, I'm going to take those death threats very seriously, just like Wendell McPhee. One of the great things about spending so much time with Wendell is that, well, it's Wendell. He's a pretty alright guy. One of the worst things about hanging out with Wendell is you never know when he's going to get the gumption to talk about something that he's constantly telling you he doesn't care, he doesn't care, he doesn't care. But once in a while, he gets the gumption to speak up and say something. And it's important to have it already recorded and ready. So for about 3/4 of a year, every time I went over to Wendell McPhee's, I turned on my recording device before I went in, and I did not turn it off until I left. So most of it, it's just us listening to tunes or watching old cowboy movies or learning about history or a lot of Wendell talking about everybody else in town. And of course, you got to join him in order to get him to do that. So I talked about other people in town too. Small town politics. He don't want to get involved, but he wants to have an opinion. Lots of people are like that. They don't want to look at evidence, but they got an opinion. They want to go from, all right, I saw that, yes, I saw that evidence, yes, I saw that evidence, to, no, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. Well, thank goodness with Dan Fabert, I recorded him while I was in McCook earlier this year. He verified a few things that it's good that he verified those things, because with those phones getting stolen, I didn't have the ability to prove it anymore. With him admitting it, woohoo! That's a win. That's one of the things where a lot of these people are mad at me. Is that I ended up having conversations with them to try to get them to admit things that they had admitted to in those phones, specifically so I could post it on the internet. There's a reason for that. Mandated reporters who did not report. So, trying to get them to say those things a second time, you know, it's not natural the way that my speech is. Listening to those recordings, you know, if I heard somebody else talking like that, I'd be real suspicious. But no, they go right along talking about themselves and their personal lives and how much they hate this person and how much they hate that person. And, you know, here's this time that I relapsed and here's that time that I relapsed. No, Sean, I haven't done any drugs in 6 months. And in the same conversation, Sean, I haven't done any drugs in 3 weeks. In the same conversation, Sean, I relapsed yesterday. And in the same exact conversation, yeah, Sean, I'm real fucked up. I called you because I'm flipping out. You know, I relapsed and I'm sorry. Well, you don't have to be sorry to me for relapsing. Now, if you do fucked up shit to me when you're coming down, there's going to be an issue. I might have to call the cops. I know how addicts are when they're coming down, and I know that everybody around them is subject to abuse. Everybody around them is subject to being lashed at. Everybody around them is subject to blame for everything that they have done. The problem is that when the addict is a young, pretty female, well, people don't look at it the same. She must be the victim because she's young and pretty. Sean must have not been able to take no for an answer. Nope. Wrong answer. The evidence shows, ding, 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 that was Tim Beeson. When she wanted to leave him, well, he bought her a puppy. Then when she wanted to leave him again, he wouldn't let her have the puppy. Then she thought that she'd talk to him nicely and maybe she'd get her puppy back. And she went to go get her puppy and he held her down and screamed in her fucking face. Told her she could have her dog back when she took him back. That was only one of the predators. Her dad was another one. Her Uncle Troy was another one. She admitted what these men did, but she also admitted that she still loved them. She still loved the men that raped her. It wasn't just Ted Bollinger who did it. It was also Ted Bollinger's brother, Troy Bollinger. Should never, ever have been allowed around those girls. Ted Bollinger should never, ever have been allowed around those girls. Rose M. Kelly knew what Ted was doing and said nothing, and that's why Natalie cut on herself. Natalie also told Danica Garner and Rochelle Shelley Campbell. They both verified it, yet they said nothing. They said nothing then, and they won't admit to it now, which is why it's a good thing I saved all of the recordings that I did, is it not? It's a good thing that I saved all of that. Now, there's the stuff with Kara Johnson Miles, and we're going to have to go through that. There's the stuff with Tim Beeson, and we're going to have to go through that. I got a small tripod in here, and I've been looking for it for about 3 weeks. If I'm able to find it, I can use it to actually hold my phone steady. So once I'm able to get it to focus, I'll just try not to touch it. Now, I've done this before. And of course, you know, depending on where I'm at, the internet connection is better in some places than others. There's 2 of them where I was trying to show what was going on with Tim Beeson, where I was in it was a fucking small cafe in Podunk fucking nowhere. Not even sure where it was at. But they had internet, and they had plugins that we're allowed to use, and they had some real big fat juicy hamburgers. That's what I remember. Oh yeah, and a dirt driveway. Trying not to have a stressful day. I'm trying not to overwhelm myself. I'm trying to calm myself down. Maybe nobody will ever hear it. But I owe it to Natalie, to myself, to all these other victims, to at least try. If there's a possibility that Ted Bollinger is human trafficking, or that he is taking part in identity theft, well, you goddamn right I'll help turn the son of a bitch in. He fucked his own goddamn daughters. On more than one occasion, when he did fucked up shit with Alicia, people wanted to threaten to kill me and my family again. Yeah, that was a great birthday present, Alicia. Thank you for disappearing on my birthday. That was the fucking nicest thing you could have done. Kind of like when your mom found Natalie's heroin on my birthday in 2016. Wasn't my heroin. I wasn't the one fighting over a boy with y'all. Why the fuck am I the one punished over that? Why am I punished for doing what you asked me to do? Oh, yeah, because you ended up being horrible people. I understand telling a little white lie because you don't want your family to hate you. But when that little white lie wasn't just to keep your family from hating you, when that little white lie was spread to Maddie Boa, and it was spread to her junkies, not fucking okay. I don't do well at all by myself. If I don't have a support network nearby, if there's an issue and I got to talk to the cops by myself, well, the way they talk to me by myself is completely different from how they talk to me when it's with someone else. How they talk when they know that they're being recorded is different from how they talk when they're not being recorded. Now you get to hear, like, for example, in the conversation with Rhiannon Ingersoll before she died, she speaks about how she did break the law. She did those things because she was angry and she admitted it. But you also get to see, because she lied to that officer, that that officer was nothing but hostility. Nothing but bully. Well, he may have bullied me, but I was the one that did the right thing and tried to get those girls to a safe location where they weren't being beaten by Rihanna. Those fucking pigs did everything that they could not to do anything about it. Now, somebody else was calling them too, and I'm certain that it's not over the phone calls that I made because, well, they came about food. Both of Amy Spencer's daughters are obese, or were at the time. They dealt with their stress by eating food, and eating food, and eating more food. It's not their fault that their mom loved her drugs more than she loved her own kids. Finding out that both of those daughters wrote to the judge and asked to stay at the foster home that they were put in, that is the nicest thing I've heard in so long. I mean, that is the most wonderful thing, because I was afraid. I mean, it's tough because you got kind of it's not a 50-50 chance. I mean, you got a better chance of getting a good, decent foster home than a shitty one. But there's still a lot of shitty ones. I mean, we're talking about 2 to 3 of them out of every 10. But when you're in an absolute situation, that's where working in facts and working in absolutes is important. When those girls are in a situation where they absolutely are being abused now, and that abuse is continuing, you know, I did my job as a mandated reporter by trying to turn that in. But in Wyoming, I don't believe I am a mandated reporter. I believe that those police officers are. But then again, they didn't have body cameras, did they? And they separated me from my recording device. And then, of course, I wasn't able to record that live, so I didn't get to post it up on the internet until well over a year after the fact. I had a different computer at the time, so during that whole period of time that I did not have the computer that I'm currently using because it was in Rawlins, Wyoming. I had to use the computer that Ed's dumbass destroyed everything on. However, it is not entirely my fault, and it is 100% the result of negligence on the part of mandated reporters. They did not do their jobs. They did not take it seriously, and I had to pull teeth. Not literally, of course. That's a figment of speech, but of course, people like to take what I have to say out of context. Now, let's say that you are protesting, okay? And you are arrested at your protest because the protest is about how violence is wrong. And in this protest, you're talking about how people keep telling you to shoot your predators. You try to bring up Leslie Snell, you try to bring up Scott DaCosta, you try to bring up these situations that you're trying to turn in and get an honest court date. And people are saying to you, well, I'd shoot them, well, I'd shoot them. Sean, I wish I was there, I'd take care of them for you. Sean, I ever tell you I got a blah, 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 taekwondo, blah, 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 blah. Fuck. That's just fucking crazy. Obviously, I'm tired. I did obviously get to sleep at least last night for a few hours. And I'm just keeping myself company. And see if anybody's typed in a while, because I haven't actually been looking. Let's see. MRRP typed Cuyahoga Valley, Dargaville, 9:15 p.m. I must have asked a question and not seen what it is that he was replying to, because it isn't ringing a bell. But also, I want you guys to know that if officers talked to me like that and it was my daughter who was missing, I'd be fucking pissed. Now also, if Ted Bollinger is human trafficking somebody, he might kill her. A man who's willing to fuck his own daughters, to literally rape his own daughters, pimp his daughters out, and have them sell heroin and methamphetamines, well, yeah, he might kill somebody. Now, let's hope it's just a case of identity theft. That's one of the things with Layla Johnson. Yep, she could be charged with identity theft. And of course, Dan Fabert, his words prove that. Prove that she did steal the identity of someone else. Whether it's her daughter or not, it's still identity theft. Now then there's Erin Cockerham, and I think there's a possibility she might have been the friend who's friends with Dan Fabert who let him know about that. Might be. Her and I don't speak because she's not happy because she didn't tell the truth to me. She didn't tell the truth to the courts, and she never tried to make a police report. The information that she had needed to come forward. She shouldn't have offered if she wasn't willing. Now, of course, this is actually the woman, when Cara Rogers talks about the people that are threatening to kill her, Erin Cockerham is one of them. Apparently, they were both doing that back and forth to each other over whether or not I was guilty. Huh. Imagine that, because both of them claimed that they were on my side. And both of them ended up showing that they're not. In a lot of these situations, the question isn't whether or not they made an effort. It's, did they make an effort when it made a difference, or did you procrastinate until it didn't? When I was at Shannon Alvarado's, because it had not been a year yet, we could have still gotten the body cameras from Officer Michael West, who was the one who was there and present when I got the protection order. And he did not follow procedure, follow his job, and he definitely got fucking snarky. Also, he refused to take a report from me. Now, mind you, none of this happened in Boulder. None of this. The violence against me happened in Boulder. Not even once when I contacted her after leaving Virginia. Not even once did I contact her from Boulder. I wasn't in Boulder. When I went to Boulder, it was very quick in and out. I understood the safety risks. When people wanted to meet me in Boulder, I went to Boulder to meet them, and they didn't show up. And of course, there were issues that came about as a result of that. When I was at Shannon Alvarado's, if she could have just stopped drinking just for one night and actually sit down and actually help, just one fucking night. Holy hell, is that too much to ask for? Especially when you're telling me that we can work on this at night, and every night you're too drunk. Every fucking night. And then I'm a horrible person for telling the truth. These people are trying to help you. No, they're not. I mean, in concept, they wanted to... You guys are real fond of saying those pretty words that you don't actually mean. Like, oh, Sean, if you were here, I'd help you with this, 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 and this. And then I get there and they don't. Now, that's not all entirely Shannon Alvarado's fault. I mean, in her defense, Graham Milbourne, the fucking moron, who is there for multiple situations, he can verify the situation with Joshua Eichelberger. Tabitha can do that. They already have. I mean, their conversations are on my YouTube about specifically that topic. The problem is getting people to look at it. There's also a lot of people that think that they were wronged because I told the truth. Well, you know what? I saved lives. It was obvious that Rand Ingersoll was going to continue to abuse those girls, and if I said anything, I'd have to move again. No. And of course, she did after beating on them kids, and then kicking me out because I told her to stop beating on the fucking kids. She wanted to pull the whole, us women gotta stick together. Holy shit. That was fucked up. Now, of course, we gotta go all the way back to the whole point of all of that from the very start, which is what? The cops showed up with an attitude, called me with an attitude, treated me like shit. They didn't give a fuck what happened. They were looking for any excuse to be assholes. They also told me they weren't going to arrest me, and obviously they did. They lied. I did not. I predicted it. They told me that I was wrong, and then they proved me right. They also stole the evidence that I needed in order to turn in many of my predators in a timely and efficient manner, and they withheld it for massive quantities of time, preventing me from turning those things in. Just like Lana and Amanda Engeline, intentionally misleading the situation. Now, I knew that something fucked up was going down, but I didn't know what. I knew that I wasn't comfortable there, but I did know that it was the safest place that I had. But since I was going to Colorado, I needed to take my evidence with me. They'd said, oh no, this just be an arraignment and you'll be back. Well, it did not end up happening, did it? Because just a few hours later, Mandy Engline wanted to get a hold of me and start throwing tantrums and tell me about how horrible a person I am and about, well, basically there was money that was supposed to show up and Layla Johnson had promised and claimed that this lady who, well, she'd actually rented me a room for a couple of nights, not Layla, but this social worker in New Jersey. And that social worker in New Jersey was like, don't buy a computer, we'll send you one. I can't wait on your promises. You're not necessarily going to come through, and if I wait on you to come through, I'm making a mistake. Sure, you might buy that computer, but you might not. Just like you might send that money, but you might not. When I was at Lana and Amanda Engline's, did that lady who had rented me the room at the Super 8 in Longmont, so that, well, I'm not sure if you guys knew about Chaos. I'm pretty sure I've told you about him at least 100 times. Chaos the Misfit, his real name's Brian Townsend. When she rented that room, Brian Townsend was going to help me. Well, the problem is that he was off in his own world. He had he had a ring that he needed to go pull out of the pawn, and then he had to go pawn it again, and then he had to go this place and that place, and then back to the pawn shop, and, you know, we had that place for a couple of days before he got kicked out because the Asian guy at the counter was racist against black folks. You don't have to be white to be racist. I wonder, when I post that tomorrow, how many mothers are going to listen to that and go, you know, if I was trying to turn in something like that, or if that happened to my daughter and cops treated me like that, I'd smack him in the head. I bet you there's going to be a lot of mamas who listen to that, and that's exactly their thought. Now, there's one time with Sean Holloway. This was the time that I went in with Laura Nelson. This is one of the times that I was trying to turn in Robert Warnick and Cody Kurth. Sorry, not Cody Kurth, Chris Kurth. Cody Kurth didn't do that shit. It was Chris. I don't want the wrong brother getting blamed. I'm also half asleep, so I can't remember where I was going with that. Alright, I guess I'll probably have to listen to this in the morning if I can't get to sleep. But, of course, my phone is down to, oh, it's going to die any minute. So I'm going to end the video. Be safe. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. And remember, you are your brother's keeper.